Where better to start exploring my wacky creations than from the comfort of my first year university dorm room. I mean, look at this place. I was writing on the window like I was trying to cosplay some cringe version of Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind, and running experiments that involved stripping apart my fan, hanging it from the closet, and taking some questionable selfies. Today, I'm roasting my builds from 10 years ago and putting them on a tier list. Let's start out by explaining this picture. What was I doing in my closet, you might ask? Well, I was trying to make artificial muscles. You see, when spun under tension, nylon fishing line doubles back on itself, coiling like a spring. When loaded, if exposed to heat, it'll contract with 100 times the power of a natural muscle of the same weight and length. My approach to fabricating these muscles was to hang my fan from my closet, spin it at full speed, and with a custom Lego bracket, I could attach fishing lines to it. And this is what I made. A ton of muscles, some even woven and weaved into a fabric. At this point, I basically felt like I was Tony Stark.
I am Iron Man.
So much so that I attempted a cosplay for Halloween, but in reality, I was really only a pickpocket. Everything that I'd done up to this point was just following step-by-step instructions written out in this scientific paper. You may call it copying, but I call it peer review. I'm putting this copycat project B tier. But this is where my true stroke of idiotic genius comes into play. I took the title of Artificial Muscles a little too literally and pondered. What if I took real muscle cells and put them on top of the fake muscle? It just so happened that at my university, there was a biohacking research lab led by Dr. Andrew Pelling.
I lead a university-based biological research lab where we value curiosity and exploration above all else.
I'm gonna link his TED Talk below because the lab was doing some really cool stuff. Things like carving a human earlobe out of an apple and using it as scaffolding to grow human tissue cells inside of it.
We took a totally innocent Macintosh apple, removed all the apple cells and DNA, and then implanted human cells.
You can see how with a CV like this, Dr. Pelling would be down to support some wacky ideas from a first-year student way in over his head. And so basically, I got unfettered access to the lab. I learned how to cultivate C2, C12 cells. These are mouse muscle cells in a Petri dish. And the ultimate goal was to grow these muscle cells on the surface of the nylon fishing line. However, nylon, much like my brain, was way too smooth and chemically inert for the cells to actually grow on. Now, let's pretend, for the sake of argument, that the cells did successfully grow on the fishing line. I still have no clue what I was thinking. Like, what is the end game here? The actuators only contract when heated to temperatures that the human body would describe as a medical emergency. And also the twisted string actuators, they're quite slow to heat up and even slower to cool down. You would never have any fine motor control. Basically, I spent months failing to reinvent the muscle, and I would have just been better off going to the gym. While I am ranking this project a D tier failure, it was nonetheless an amazing experience, and I want to give a huge shout out to the Pelling Lab for empowering me to explore, play, and experiment. If you think that project would be enough to stop me from biohacking, oh boy, would you be wrong. Let's talk about this sexy piece of eyewear. Many people are loosely familiar with EMG, or electromusculography, in which electrodes are placed on the body to measure different electrical signals as muscles move. But not as many people are familiar with EOG, or electrooculography, in which electrodes can be used to measure the position of the eyeball. This works because the human eye is slightly polarized, That is to say that the front of the eyeball is slightly positively charged while the rear is negatively charged. By putting an electrode above and below the eye with a reference electrode behind the ear for ground, you're able to track the eyeball as it looks up and down. By also putting electrodes on the left and right hand side, you can pinpoint the exact direction in which the eye is looking at any given time. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of the final build, and really all I have to show is a few leftover circuit diagrams. But I did actually get this one to work, kinda. It kind of worked. It worked if I stood perfectly still and didn't move at all. However, anytime I moved my jaw, tilted my head, or so much as expressed any emotion beyond that of a robot, the electrical noise spiked and became unusable. I'm gonna give this one, I don't know, a B tier. It worked, but only slightly. If you're enjoying these body augmentation builds, well, you're in luck. We're moving down the body and onto the foot. Really channeling my Tony Stark vibes, I set out about making an exoskeleton for my ankle. If you zoom in closely on this, you'll see our reoccurring character, the fishing line muscle. Unperturbed by my initial failures, I set out to use it as a spring system in this exoskeleton. The idea behind this two-stage mechanism was that when the heel first struck the ground, the rear metal plate was pushed down, tightening the front muscle and pulling the shin towards the ground. Then, as you rolled onto your toes, the front metal plate would be stepped on, tensioning the rear muscle and springing the heel back up into the air. Even though this looks somewhat complete, I never really got it to a state where I could meaningfully test it. There was too much mechanical slop and poorly tensioned springs. I do find some comforting consolidation in the fact that there have been more successful exoskeletons that loosely follow the concept that I had here. I'm giving myself a C+ for that. Coming back up our bodies and onto our hands, I made a glove to control this prosthetic robotic hand. It turned out pretty good compared to all my other projects. Although one interesting tidbit is that my 3D printer was incredibly unreliable back in the day and consistently failed on any large print. I remember getting so frustrated that I gave up on printing the forearm entirely and literally made it out of paper mache in my dorm room using my own forearm as a cast. As hacky as paper mache engineering is, this project actually went pretty well. So well that it actually laid the foundation for my first YouTube video and a later video down the line about a flex sensor glove. If you want to check out those videos, they're up on my channel. I'm not going to dive into this initial prototype as much. But because it kickstarted my YouTube channel and nothing to do with the paper mache engineering, I'm going to put it a strong S tier. Even though my first official YouTube video wasn't posted until 2017, during 2016, I did actually film and edit several videos with the intention of putting them on YouTube, but they never made it out. So here is some unreleased footage for you to enjoy.
I'm going to try and create an infrared night vision camera.
First thing we're going to need is an old digital camera or perhaps a flip phone. Pretty much anything that has a camera lens in there, and also a screen on it.
I still have the remnants of this pretty neat build. You see, camera sensors detect both visible and infrared light, but generally we don't want infrared showing up in our photos. So the manufacturers add in a filter that only allows visible light through to the sensor. But by opening it up and replacing this filter with one that instead blocks visible light, you now have an infrared camera.
Well, I'm still learning as I'm going. I think it's this one that we need to remove, but I'm going to go to the internet to find out first because I'm not 100% sure and I don't really want to ruin this.
These are some of the infrared photos I was able to capture with my modified camera. I'm putting this one A tier. All right, I want to do a rapid fire round. Let's speed run through a few of my other builds. One was building a BB-8 robot, but it never got past the paper mache arts and crafts stage. It's a strong D tier. I also made a second YouTube video opening and repairing an iPhone. It failed miserably. Another D tier. At the time, I was super into rock climbing, and so I made this leather chalk bag and a promo video for it. It's going A tier for my personal nostalgia. And in the background of this dorm room photo, you can see a journal. This journal in particular is special to me. It's one that I hand carved, I hand stitched the paper leaves together, and fully assembled from scratch. I'm putting it S tier. Hopefully you've enjoyed looking at some of my humiliating failures. Fortunately, in the decade since 2016, I've had some great successes. If you're just starting out on your DIY making journey, please don't be discouraged if your first builds run into different roadblocks and challenges that you weren't expecting. It's all part of the process. With persistence, you'll continue to grow and develop new skills.